Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I always state that a person who is in the Darul Ulum, who is in a Dars Nizami curriculum, if they can leave the Dars Nizami, if they can leave and graduate from their institution with two things, then at least to me, and you may be saying like, who are you? But as a person who has gone through the whole system, I would feel confident in that person. I would feel like they have achieved success. Those two things are the capability of doing mutala'ah, being able to research, being able to read on one's own. And number two, the desire. The desire to read, research, further one's knowledge. If you have these two aspects, in terms of the academic aspect, then you would be successful. I'm not talking about the amal. The amal, of course, is even more important, and that's a separate thing altogether. But as a student, as someone who is learning the deen, if you're incapable of any of these two, then that doesn't translate to success. For instance, there are so many people who they go through the whole curriculum, 7 years. Sometimes the curriculum is 8 years. In other places, it's 6 years. It really differs. They'll go through the whole system. They'll reach right at the end, the Dawratul Hadith. They're in Sahih al-Bukhari, and they're struggling with ibara. They're struggling with reading Arabic. They don't know how to read Arabic properly. Forget about speaking Arabic. Forget about writing Arabic. Reading Arabic is difficult for such an individual. For that person, when they graduate, even if they have the desire to study, even if they want to read various books, they want to go on their own, they want to study, they want to collect information, they want to write a book, they're not going to be able to do so because they didn't put in that initial effort to be able to understand the Arabic language, to be able to understand the different usul books so that they may understand everything out there. So that's situation number one. This person doesn't have what we call the isti'dad, the capability, but he has the raghba, he has the desire. Flip the script around and have an individual who has a very good, strong foundation, a strong isti'dad and capability. However, when they graduate, they don't pursue anything further. That's the limit of their study. And there's a large chunk of students who have good, strong isti'dad. They learned all of the material well. They learned Arabic, sarf, nahu, balagha, mantiq, whatever it is. They really learned it well. And all of the durus, they may have even placed first, second, or third in their classes. However, it is actually quite common. After graduation, they get involved in some khidmah, alhamdulillah, but not really involved in kitabs or teaching. And because of that, they become stagnant in their ilm. And the height of their knowledge was when they were in their final year. If that's the situation as well, you're not going to be successful in terms of knowledge, being an alim after you graduate. You have to pursue more. You have to utilize what you have received in the madrasa to learn now. The way I view it is that the entire madrasa prepares an individual to study. It's basically you're getting a certification to study. And that's what it means to be considered a scholar. You can access classical books in Islam in the Arabic language. You can understand the context. You can understand what the scholar is saying. You can compare it to different things. And you can pursue a specific field. The curriculum doesn't go so deep into every single field such that you're a master. You don't master anything in the Darul Ulum, the Dars Nizami curriculum. It acquaints you with everything. All the necessary fields, the most important ones, it acquaints you with them such that you should be able to pursue more. So I'll give you an example. Ulum al-Hadith, Mustalah al-Hadith, Hadith terminology. In many Darul Ulums, they will teach you Nukhbatul Fikr of Imam Ibn Hajar, and they'll teach you his Sharh, Nuzhatul Nadar. And if you're lucky in your Darul Ulum, they'll probably teach maybe Ibn Salah or Imam Nawawi's Irshadu Tulab al-Haqa'iq. Now, the field of Mustalah al-Hadith is an ocean. It's like literally hundreds of books written on Mustalah, Hadith terminology. If you read 2 books, have you mastered the field? Absolutely not. In most places, this is it. That's all you study. Nuzhatun Nadar, and maybe if you're lucky, Muqaddimah ibn Salah, or another book that is summarizing it or mimicking its style. There is no way you're going to master a field if you study 2 books. However, what does happen is that the ustadh, the teacher who has mastered those fields, they will bring together their understanding, their research of various books, put it all together while teaching that book, and you get so much knowledge in learning just one book that it introduces the subject to you, and sometimes very well. You get a little bit more than an introduction, such that it is hoped that if you learned it properly, you will be able to go afterward, open up most books of Mustalah al-Hadith, unless it's like very ali, very high level, and you'll be able to understand it. You'll still learn new things that you didn't come across before, but it won't be such that you're just stuck and you can't access it. Now, if you didn't learn Nuzhatun Nadar, you didn't learn Irshad, you didn't learn Muqaddimah ibn Salah, for example, if you go and you open up Fathul Mughith, you're going to have a really tough time. You might not be able to understand anything at all. You open up a book of Takhrij, of Nasb al-Raya, you want to understand the language that's being used. Why? Because you didn't focus on that preliminary book that was taught in the course. Similarly, every single field, it's not just Arabic. That's where most of people's problems lie, in the Arabic language. They don't do well in that. But in every field, if you fail to understand these books as you go into Dars Nizami, you're not going to understand much after. So, coming back to my point, these 2 things, the capability needs to be there. So if someone is capable, but they don't want to, they're not going to go anywhere with their knowledge. I'm not saying they're not going to be doing anything good. There's so many people who do khidmah of deen. Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. But here I'm talking about being successful as an alim, as someone who has knowledge, as someone who imparts knowledge, as someone who understands the deen. You need more than just 7 years of study. The 7 years is an introduction for you to study even more. So if a person, however, has the capability, they develop themselves in such a way where they studied the Arabic language, they studied all of the books very well, they spent extra time outside of the class, maybe with some, outside of the class with some special durus with the teacher, or they studied extra books on the side, strengthening themselves, or they just were very proficient in studying what was given to them, and they learned it all very, very well. And then they had the love of reading, the love of research, the love of learning more was instilled in this person. When they graduate, you don't have to tell them anything. In terms of their knowledge and their pursuit of knowledge, you don't really have to tell them that, hey, you should study this or you should do that. They already have a whole plan in their mind. They're going to go after it. They're going to learn. They're going to do many different things. Some will pursue postgraduate courses such as the Ifta, the Mufti course, a takhasus in Hadith, a takhasus in Arabic, a takhasus in Tafsir, a takhasus in the Qira'at Ashar, etc., etc. So some will do that. But even if someone doesn't do that, if they have those 2 aspects where they know how to study and they love to study, then inshallah they will be successful. And I have a complaint against many of the students. It's not necessarily the asatid, of course, not the ustads in the Darul Ulums, but the Darul Ulums should look after the students. Sometimes I had a friend, we were in Dawratul Hadith, and he was lamenting greatly. Every day he would be like, I wish I learned, I wish I learned, I wish I could read. He couldn't read the Hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. He would read and he would make an error constantly. He doesn't know when it's marfu', mansub, majrur, no idea. And then you have, a gradient of people. Some are kind of in the middle, a mistake here and there. But this individual, he couldn't understand. We were in 7th year. He had the Arabic understanding of a person maybe in his 3rd year. When we were in 3rd year, that's how his level was. And the sad thing is, he wasn't an outlier. There were so many of these type of people. And now I think back, I'm like, what are these people doing? If they're teaching in their communities right now, what are they teaching? They don't have that isti'dad, they don't have that. They may love kitabs, etc., but you don't have the capability of researching and learning. How are you going to teach? How are you going to impart? It doesn't make any sense. So for those of you who are like in the beginning of your journey of talabatul ilm, seeking knowledge, or talabul ilm I should say, my advice to you is don't mess around. You're going to have chances to mess around in the Darul Ulum, a lot of friends, a lot of free time. If you don't use that time wisely, you may end up as an individual who's just going to lament all the time. And then you have this inferiority complex because now you're out in the real world. You've been hired as maybe an imam, khatib, or a ustad somewhere in some madrasa. They know that you graduated a very long, prestigious course. They're going to hire you right away without being able to test you. And then you're going to always have this thought in your mind that, am I capable of teaching? Can I do it? And then you're going to have to spend hours and hours to prepare something that doesn't even take 10 minutes to prepare. For someone who knows what they're doing, they could just read the text, they understand the commentary, they can deliver right away. But if you didn't learn properly, you're going to be sitting there. You might even have to ask a friend, call someone, hey, how do I read this? I don't know how to check the dictionary. So that's a huge source of disgrace. If you spent almost a decade learning and you can't even read books, right? So make sure, inshallah, that you guys learn how to read a book, right? You have the capability. Your Arabic is such that you can read books on your own. By the time you're in your 3rd or 4th year, you should start to read books in Arabic on your own. If you're a student in the Darul Ulum, then your focus should not be reading books in English. Now, there's nothing wrong with books in English. I have so many books in English. You guys can see my book hauls. I love reading in English. But when I was a student in the Darul Ulum, I focused on the Arabic language. I would read books cover to cover in Arabic. And that started picking up more in my 4th year onward. It was a 7-year course. And I studied a total about 11 years. So at the end, it was just all Arabic. Such that I'm very comfortable with the Arabic language, at least classical scholarship in Islam. Alhamdulillah, it's on par with English or even better. I can read sometimes Arabic faster than I can read in English. And that's not to say that I'm some u'juba, some special individual. This is what every individual is supposed to be like who graduate. But unfortunately, some who don't focus, and this is not in any way a deficiency from the teachers. The teachers fulfill their right. Because if you have some students who really do well, and then students who don't do well, then it's obvious that the students who did well is because of the teachers. And the students who didn't do well is because they didn't focus. So don't waste your time in the Darul Ulum. Really study, really learn your stuff, or else you will regret. I'm telling you later on. You'll regret not learning how to read Arabic, speak Arabic, understand Arabic. All of these things are very essential. And then even the other higher level fields, don't mess around. And you will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by having the enjoyment of being able to do mutala'ah later on. It's like the floodgates of knowledge are open. Not that you've become the greatest scholar in the world, but now you can go online, you can see different books, you can purchase them, you can read them yourself, you can own these books. Things that when I was a student, I wouldn't even dream of. Alhamdulillah. The fact that I have like a mini library here. This is a dream for me. When I was a student, we would sit on the floor, we would have this small little desk, and then you would have a few books on the side. You would never even dream of having a computer, a big desk, a library around you. This is something that we always wished for. And I can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for that. So anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. I'm rambling already. Some of you complain regarding me rambling. But it's just something I had in mind that I wanted to share. And I feel like this is a very common phenomena, and students really need to focus if they want to do some khidmah of deen later on. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.